with WWE telling Ronda Rousey to let her bitterness towards fans go and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for February 7th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With him having to take time away from WWE due to a neck injury, Drew McIntyre would make his return to action at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Talking about the company working around his injury, Dave Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio that he's not 100%. He's going to do TVs, he's not going to do house shows for now. He's still working on rehab. It's not like he's fixed or anything, but you know, he is back on TV, which, I mean, he'll do the match with Moss in Saudi Arabia, and probably wrestle Corbin at WrestleMania, most likely. And I'm going to guess that he'll probably run through them, but he did come back very quickly. The theory is that by WrestleMania he'll be okay. That was always the hoped for thing, is that he'll be healthy enough by Mania. I mean, look, he was in the Rumble for a long time, and he threw people around. It was also noted that there are still plans for McIntyre to face Roman Reigns in the future. They like him, and he's being groomed for Roman Reigns. It's down the line, so the people who are groomed for Roman Reigns are going to be protected until they get to Roman Reigns. As fans await his next move in pro wrestling now that he's a free agent, Meltzer mentioned on Wrestling Observer Radio that AEW may have already signed Keith Lee. AEW announced a big debut on Wednesday, so I'd say that the favorite would be Keith Lee. Could be Athena. John Hennigan is another one. Of the people whose 90-day non-competes ended, those were the three that I thought were the most viable to sign. I know they've been talking to Keith Lee. I know they were pretty close with Keith Lee. If it's not already a done deal, it probably is a done deal. I don't know that officially, but that's kind of been the word going around. Hennigan, you know what you got. I think with Athena, you know what you got, and actually, she would be good. Keith is an interesting one. I know what Keith was in 2018, and even toned down and told not what to do, he's good at in NXT. He did still get over. Main roster was a disaster. Speaking of AEW, MJF recently picked up a huge win over CM Punk on Dynamite last week. As president of the company, Tony Khan talked about how this was MJF's best performance. It was an amazing match. It was an incredible match. You can't say enough about what those two men did for AEW and for our fans. All the great people in Chicago who came through a snowstorm to get to the show, they saw an awesome main event. I don't think it was the result anybody in Chicago wanted to see, or probably anybody wanted to see. I have to say, outside of Long Island, I don't know if there's that many MJF fans, but if you're an MJF fan, this was your biggest night, because that was his biggest win and his best match. I thought it was an awesome main event. It was recently found out that Goldberg will be facing off against Roman Reigns in Saudi Arabia for the Universal title, as that match was supposed to take place years back at WrestleMania 36. Reigns would have to pull out of that bout due to medical reasons, with Meltzer saying that WWE has wanted Roman to beat Goldberg for a while now. Goldberg and Roman makes sense. They've been wanting to do that match. I don't see Goldberg winning. Like, you could do, have Brock Lesnar get his retribution, cost Goldberg the championship. Then Goldberg could defend it, but I don't see that happening. I think that Reigns just beats Goldberg, because they've been wanting to have Reigns beat Goldberg for a couple years now. Given Goldberg has one more match on his WWE contract, many are wondering what will be next for the WCW legend. It was pointed out on Wrestling Observer Radio that the man could be re-signed by the company to continue being a nostalgia act for Saudi Arabia shows. I've not heard him re-signing. I would expect that they would re-sign him. They're not going to put the title on him unless he re-signs. I'm sure of that. I could see the argument because of being so high not to re-sign him, but I just sense that they probably will. One, to keep him away from the opposition, and the other because they can afford to do it. Again, like the Saudis. There's not too many guys from that era left. In fact, there's just about nobody. But the people there, they want those 90s guys because that's who they grew up on, and that's who the real wrestlers are to them. You can't really. I guess they could bring Hogan back. They brought him there one year, but they want that nostalgia stuff, the old stuff, and Bill looks enough like Bill Goldberg to pull it off, and so just for that, he's that attraction if they want. WWE, I mean, the reality is WWE is that they have all these guys under contract that are good wrestlers, and the only time that they never do programs with them that really get over other than Reigns and Lesnar as the exception, but for the most part, just go in there and stuff doesn't really get over in Saudi Arabia, so you rely on the nostalgia acts, and they're running low on them, and Bill is one of the last ones. Undertaker's done. Shawn Michaels isn't going to wrestle again. Paul Levesque, I can't imagine Levesque would wrestle again. He may. I mean, I don't want to say it would surprise me because nothing surprises me, but I can't see it. You got Brock and Ronda, but the more they're around, the less special they'll be. So Goldberg, the one thing with Goldberg is he's never going to work more than 1 or 2 matches a year. With news of him potentially re-signing with the company, Goldberg said during a WWE documentary that he wants to work for the promotion as long as he can. I genuinely appreciate every single human being that has been a fan at any time of my career, because that means I did something right along the way. People see me as a mythical character. When I'm in the ring every once in a while, I'm here to show people that it doesn't matter your age. It matters only about your desire, your willingness to work. I never imagined there would still be an opportunity. I never imagined that there would still be the desire for me to go out and do what I did when I was on top. So things change, people. Change and situations change. I may be 54, but I really am more than willing to continue to learn about this business. And as long as I have something to offer it, then I'll still be a part of it. On SmackDown with Happy Corbin, Madcap Moss has been involved in a feud with Drew McIntyre, and on After the Bell, Paul Heyman said he believes Moss will be a main event guy in the future. Riddick Moss is going to be a star. I don't think anyone has a clue with just how capable he is. He's demonstrated that he can walk into any personality that he is assigned at the moment. When Moss has the emergence out of his shell and into his next incarnation, the same way the big dog elevated his game and evolved into the tribal chief, Riddick Moss's next iteration in WWE, there will be no stopping him. He's a main eventer. At Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia on the 19th, Madcap Moss will get a shot at Drew McIntyre. After winning the championship from Lesnar at the Royal Rumble, Lashley is set to defend the WWE title in the Elimination Chamber, as the former champ will be in that match. Talking to Bleacher Report, Lashley was asked about facing Brock in an MMA-style bout, as the champion said, "Oh, it all interests me. The only thing that doesn't interest me is a street fight. I think what I can do with my fist is going to be more brutal than what I can do with a kendo stick or with a table or with a chair. I don't think we even need that, and I think he feels the same way. I think he'd rather suplex me than swing a stick at me. So many people want to see it, that a pit fight would be cool. Put on some MMA gloves and get in the cage. I think any one of those things interests me." It was previously reported by Ringside News that Lashley already has an opponent locked in for Mania, so we'll have to wait and see who it is. The TBS champion Jade Cargill is undefeated in AEW and looks to be unstoppable. On Talk Is Jericho, Cargill touched on her debut in the company, noting that she was originally supposed to be a babyface. "I was actually being groomed to be a babyface. So when they legit popped it on me like the day of, 'You're going through the heel tunnel.' I was like, what? Huh? You're telling me I'm a heel? Okay, alright, let me look into this more." It was shocking. I had a whole comeback. When it comes to WWE dealing with their TV partners, Meltzer would point out that the company is giving preferential treatment to Fox over the USA Network. Fox doesn't need WWE, but they're doing everything to appease Fox. They put Lesnar on Fox, they put Ronda Rousey on Fox, Charlotte Flair is on Fox, which Fox has always wanted, so they got her. It's very clear right now that SmackDown is getting the best end of the deal because SmackDown does well under Fox's average. Raw does 4 times, essentially USA's average, so Fox can take or leave it, so they're going to make sure. But Fox is a much better vehicle for SmackDown. I mean, if for whatever reason, and I don't expect this to happen, Fox goes, you know what, we don't got NFL on Thursday. The whole idea was going to be a big sports weekend. Thursday is going to be the NFL, Friday is going to be SmackDown, Saturday is going to be college football, and then Sunday is going to be the NFL. That was what they were going to build the whole network around. Thursday football was very successful, but they didn't bid to keep it. It ended up going streaming. Obviously, they're still going to have Saturday and Sunday with the college football and pro football, but they don't need that bridge. It's easy for them to do. They're in business. There's a lot of other business that Fox is doing with WWE, so it is a beneficial relationship for them. So I will expect that they will want to keep it. Obviously, WWE will also want to play, again, streaming services that are willing to overspend like Peacock, and WWE knows that. Speaking of Wrestling Inc., AJ Styles was asked about WWE stars having to read and recite scripts word for word, as the Phenomenal One said. "I take what's given, and sure, I'll suggest things, but I take what's given and make it my own. A lot of people say word for word, but that's not me, because the writers are not from Gainesville, Georgia, so that's not how AJ Styles will talk in a promo. I have to change it and make it my own. And truth is, it is a lot easier to remember if you do that. There's a lot of things being said about that, and I'll just make sure everybody knows the facts. I don't say it word for word. I do not do it." During that interview, AJ would also talk about working with Vince McMahon. "I love it. So many things I had heard about him in the past, and then I go and meet this man, and we get along great. It's one of those things, if you go up to him and you're honest and you're professional, you have no problems." On Wrestling Observer Radio, Ronda Rousey was being discussed with it noted that WWE talked to the former UFC champion about her being bitter towards pro wrestling fans. Ronda wants to be there. She doesn't have to do this. She hates the fans because of them turning on her, but you have to let that go. I presume somebody explained to her. I know people talk to her about certain things, but it was explained that you have to let that go, because if you're going to be bitter about that, you're not supposed to be a heel, and if you're bitter at the fans, you're not going to be a very good babyface. She was way better. One thing that was very interesting, as somebody who was there live and mentioned to me, when they kept showing the graphics over and over, Ronda Rousey coming and all this, it seemed like there was no reaction to her in the graphic. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.